Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the U.S. Capitol building. If you've joined us today for the insurrection, please make sure you pick up a promotional leaflet on the way in, stay inside the safety cordons at all times, and if you get lost, speak to one of our Capitol police officers. They'll be sure to point you in the right direction.
What's up, guys? Your boy Benny. In any good murder mystery, the more you begin to unravel the case, the more you begin to see that you can't trust anybody. The more all of the facts of the case become distorted and confusing, the more you begin to question who the actual culprit was. Who's the actual murderer? There was a murderer on January 6th. It was a federal agent who slaughtered unarmed, innocent, veteran Ashley Babbitt, who was inside of the United States Capitol and peacefully protesting and was killed in cold blood without warning. There was also another murder on January 6th, and that murder was the murder in American people's faith in law enforcement and in the practices of law enforcement, as we saw multiple layers of mass law enforcement failures. And I can speak to this personally because during the BLM riots, just that summer, I watched Washington, D.C. get torched effectively to the ground. I watched some of our most precious and prized monuments be desecrated. I watched Donald Trump get taken down into a secured bunker because these left-wing orcs had overrun the White House and were burning down buildings on White House property, injuring hundreds of Secret Service officers. You never hear about that. Nobody was even charged. Isn't that wild? This is a photo of the Lincoln Memorial when the National Guard was deployed to the Lincoln Memorial to protect it and to stop these animals from going and desecrating it. They were spray painting Lincoln Memorial and so on. It was a bad look for the nation, having our national monuments desecrated, but it was a good look right here. I would argue this is a great look, right? You should have law and order. This is what it looked like when the National Guard was deployed. Let's just say there was no graffiti that night or ever again, because nobody wants to mess with a militarized unit that can use military tactics on you to make sure that you're not doing the wrong thing. What am I building up to here? The National Guard is the key to understanding January 6th. Why wasn't the National Guard deployed? Donald Trump wanted them to be deployed. Donald Trump authorized 25,000 National Guardsmen to stand in front of the United States Capitol building just like that. Let me assure you that Ray Epps or Antifa or literally anybody, some guy from the backwoods of West Virginia that's drinking an entire bottle of Jack, that none of these guys would get through the National Guard. I promise you that. I've seen these guys up close. Nobody's going to mess around. If these people were deployed at the Capitol, there would be no January 6th. It'd just be another day in the calendar. So why weren't they deployed? Donald Trump told them to be deployed. Donald Trump wanted peace and security. Donald Trump said march peacefully on that very day. Why weren't they deployed? Well, we now have some very shocking revelations that have popped up. And of course, this will come as no surprise to anybody who watches our program. We often interview Kash Patel, who claims that he was smeared by the January 6th committee for backing Trump's claims that he authorized the National Guard. Trump advisor says January 6th smear campaign against him is dead. Transcripts suppressed by the January 6th panel were released and corroborate Patel's testimony about the National Guard authorization. Ex-acting defense secretary tells the Daily Mail that the January 6th threatened him to keep him silent. So now it turns out that Kash was right. And you can actually see, you can actually read it here. You can go ahead and see the evidence and the documents of Donald Trump authorizing the National Guard to go to the Capitol that day. So who said no? The answer is Nancy Pelosi. And why would Nancy Pelosi say no to the National Guard being at the Capitol? I mean, this is what the Lincoln Memorial looked like in June of that year, and Nancy Pelosi knelt down and prayed to the protesters in this instance. What would stop Nancy Pelosi from deploying the National Guard to keep herself safe? It just doesn't make any sense until you actually see this new footage of Nancy Pelosi just released inside of her SUV with the Secret Service in it, because if you're the Speaker of the House, you get the Secret Service. You get Secret Service protection because you're in the line for the presidency. Nancy Pelosi effectively saying, I am responsible for not having the National Guard here, and it was me. It was me the whole time. This, of course, corresponds to a number of other shocking revelations that we know about Nancy Pelosi on that day. Let's listen.
Responsibility, Terry. We did not have any accountability for what was going on there, and we should have. This is ridiculous. You're going to ask me in the middle of the thing when they've already breached the inaugural stuff that should we call the Capitol Police? I mean, the National Guard? Why weren't the National Guard there to begin with?
They thought that they had sufficient resources.
That is not a question of how they had been. They don't know. They clearly didn't know, and I take responsibility for not having them just prepare for more.
Nancy Pelosi said no to having the United States Capitol look like this. This is a fact. There would not have been a single hand laid on the United States Capitol if the National Guard, like Donald Trump wanted, had been deployed. So this, of course, destroys their entire narrative, along with a number of other narrative-destroying facts, like the chief of police that day at the U.S. Capitol continually calling Nancy Pelosi and getting left on red for 70 minutes. Nancy Pelosi waited until the Trump supporters had breached the building. Paid agitators, Antifa members, whatever rabble there was that day, hooliganism all around. Nancy Pelosi waited until they had breached the building in order to pick up the phone calls from her security team.
The House in charge of security at the Capitol?
So you have the politically appointed Capitol Police Board that's put in place by, you have the Sergeant Arms that's put in place by Pelosi, you have the Senate Sergeant Arms that's put in place by the Senate leadership, and then you have the architect of the Capitol that's put in place by the president. So you have 3 voting members. I'm a non-voting member. I'm the only non-politically appointed non-voting member, and that's kind of how the security oversight works. But it was Paul Irving who immediately said, I'm going to run it up the chain. I'll never forget that, run it up the chain. His chain of command ends at Speaker Pelosi. And I had to wait 71 minutes to finally get an approval at 2:09 p.m. before I could finally reach out and start calling in federal assistance. 71 minutes while my men and women fought on the fought heroically to prevent the Capitol from being from being penetrated. And it took 80 minutes before the first window was broken. So those were critical, essential minutes.
So this chief of police, Stephen Sund, is sitting there saying, Nancy Pelosi took 71 minutes to pick up my phone call, and it was 80 minutes from the first breach until the windows were shattered inside of the building. And what was Pelosi doing? We actually have some footage of what Pelosi was doing. She was doing something that is, if this were a murder mystery, would actually be the murder weapon with DNA on it at the crime scene.
The service said they have dissuaded him from coming to Capitol Hill. They told him they don't have the resources to protect him here. So at the moment he is not coming, but that could change.
Oh, he comes, I'm going to punch him out. This is my mom.
I would pay the fee.
So she's talking about Trump. She says, if he comes, I'm going to punch him out. And everybody focused on that and said, whoa, hey, boom, clap, whatever. Violence against the president or Slay Queen, whatever, But nobody caught the next thing that she says, which is so unbelievably strange and clearly proves coordination on the Capitol breach. Watch.
I'm waiting for this, for trespassing on the Capitol grounds. I'm going to punch him out, and I'm going to go to jail, and I'm going to be happy.
I've been waiting for this? For trespassing on the Capitol grounds? Trespassing is what they charge the vast majority of J6ers with. Trespassing. Oh, you were trespassing. They hit him with a misdemeanor for trespassing. Now, this is an insane thing to say as Speaker of the House because, millions of Americans walk into the Capitol every single year. You, right now, can walk right into the Capitol. You just go right in through the visitor center. You can walk straight into the rotunda of the Capitol. You can walk all over the Capitol building. You can walk into Statuary Hall and look at all the... You could book a tour right now. What do you mean trespassing on the Capitol ground? Since trespassing? Who's ever thought of that? Who's ever heard of that? Yet that's what Nancy Pelosi was thinking whilst she's watching J6 on TV. She's literally coming up with she's able to say the charges that they hit like every J6er with, that are currently actually under review at the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is probably going to remand these charges down to the lower courts and throw all of the J6 charges into total and complete chaos because it's been so abused. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been abused because people like Nancy Pelosi were far more concerned about how she looked on that day than what her actions were. Look at Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi is walking here with her video team on the day of January 6th. You can see here where Nancy Pelosi actually slows down so that her camera woman can get the shot. Look at that. It takes you just a second. You have to know. It's not hard, though, to see. You can see the camera woman walking, and then Nancy Pelosi does a stutter step in order to make sure that the camera person has the right angle on her. That's how concerned Nancy Pelosi was on January 6th. It's almost like Nancy Pelosi knew something that none of the rest of us knew. Very, very strange that. Maybe she knew that there were federal officers who were encouraging that same trespassing that Nancy Pelosi talks about in the aforementioned clip. Like this. This is undercover body cam. This is undercover body camera of federal officers, Metropolitan Police officers, encouraging J6ers to go into the Capitol, to scale the walls of the Capitol. Help them up. Go, go, go. Help them up. Push them up. Push them up. Go, 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 go. Drain the swamp. That's entrapment, dude. That's what that is. Can anybody explain this footage? Anybody explain what's going on here when a violent protester gets handcuffed, then unhandcuffed, and let free before he gets clapped on the back and fist bumped by the cops who arrested him? What's going on there? What is that? I don't have an explanation. I would like to know what's happening there. Something seems very, very strange. Something seems like a setup. Like there was a big, fat setup. And that everything you know about January 6th is a lie. That's it. Everything about January 6th is a lie. And you see clips like this of these people like just peacefully taking their little flags and walking down the halls and saying hi to the cops. Exclusive, Liz Cheney, January 6th committee suppressed exonerating evidence of Trump's push for National Guard. They suppressed information, falsely claimed that there was no evidence to support Trump officials' claims. The White House asked for 10,000 National Guard troops. There actually is evidence of that. They lied to you. They lied to you. And now the D.C. National Guard whistleblowers saying they were ready to be deployed on January 6th on Trump's orders, but were held back by the Pentagon in bombshell testimony contradicting Capitol Riot Committee's story. Oh, no. Well, well, well. Either, somebody's telling the truth and somebody's lying. It's a murder mystery. But you know what? Now we have on tape Nancy Pelosi saying it's her fault.
Clearly didn't know, and I take responsibility for not having them just prepare for more.
I take responsibility. Unaired footage show chaos, anger of congressional leaders amid January 6th evacuation. Politico reviewed a 45-minute video shot by Nancy Pelosi's daughter and was recently obtained by the House GOP investigators. Expect more from this. Expect more about the truth about Nancy Pelosi and January 6th. We are very much looking forward to more of this footage being released. It's already a bombshell. And will anybody ever be held accountable for that day? Holy smokes, man. We hope so. We hope so. We never want to see anything like that ever happen again. It's been horrors beyond imagination for our fellow American. And there were really evil forces at play that day. Don't ever want that to happen again. If you agree, ladies and gentlemen, help us fight those evil forces. Like, share, and subscribe to this channel. See you.